Hey, what's up guys and gals? My name is Rick9G. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be talking about I Love Lucy. More specifically about the episode California Here We Come. It's one of my favorites, and I know it's one of your favorites as well, as big I Love Lucy fans. We're going to talk a little bit about a map that Lucy uses in the beginning of the episode to describe where the Ricardos and the Mertzes were going to go during their cross-country trip all the way from New York to Hollywood, California. I'm going to go really in depth, and I do want to give a big shout out to someone very special, a supporter of the channel who was actually inspired by some of the work that I do here on the Rick9G channel. Now, her name is Wan Mei Liang. I hope I'm saying that correctly, and she connected with me on Instagram. She has a page. I'm going to put her information down in the description below this video. She's a professional map maker, and so that's really cool that she makes maps. That is her specialty, and she was a big fan of I Love Lucy, as I mentioned, and she thought, why don't I just make a map of this episode that is the map that we see on I Love Lucy, and she kind of reconstructed it herself, put a little bit of realism in it, and so this is all her work, and I wanted to showcase it in this video and go a little more in depth than what she did, add my own things to her work, and just make a kind of a cool collaboration. So I want to thank her for her work and her dedication in what she does and to the channel as well. Now I'm going to show you everything that she sent me and describe it as we go along. So she made this beautiful travel postcard that is kind of reminiscent to what we see when Lucy's mother writes her and so forth. It has a California poppy on the left, which is really nice. It says inspired by season 4 episode 13 of I Love Lucy, which is, of course, as she writes, California Here We Come, with a nice just vintage classic car on the side. It's not, from what I see, the Pontiac, is it? No, because that's a hard top, but it's reminiscent to the actual Pontiac, which is really nice. Now this is the other side of the postcard, and again, she did all of this, and it's like I said, if I'm going to kind of put it back to forth so you can see this is what she made, the green with the red, compared to what Lucy is holding up in her big billboard or big bulletin board, and so it's mimicking the areas that Lucy said that they would go on the trip. So let's take a look at this. She writes up here, in the 1950s show I Love Lucy, the Ricardos and Mertzes are set for Hollywood. Ethel wants to see, and so this is mentioned in the episode, that the reason why Lucy makes this crazy map is because they want to go to certain places. Now Lucy has a place of where everyone wants to go. She says that Ethel wants to see the Ozark Mountains and the Carlsbad Caverns. We're going to break this down in just a little bit. And then she adds that Ricky wants to see New Orleans and the Rockies. Then Fred wants to see Cincinnati, Niagara Falls, and Salt Lake City. And everyone, all 4 of them, want to see the Grand Canyon. So this is the map that Lucy shows up. And she even jokes, one of the great lines in this episode, she says, the only thing is, in order to make it work, we have to go through New York 3 times on the way to Chicago, which is obviously ridiculous, and it points to the zaniness of Lucy. Now I want to take a look at the map on the right hand side, where essentially is where they start. This is their starting point, of course, New York City, New York. And what is great is just the direction they're going in. If you really look at it, they go into New York, they go out into Pennsylvania, back into New York, and then out again. So you could technically say that they do go out, but look at Connecticut. Look at Connecticut to the right of New York City. They actually, according to this map, they somehow, they go across the bridge, I believe. They go into Connecticut, then into New York. So it's New York, Connecticut, New York, that's the second time. They go out into Pennsylvania and then back out. So that would be 3 times. So according to the map, in my understanding, this is correct. And they would go down to many different states. We see West Virginia, we see Virginia, back into Pennsylvania, Ohio, and so forth. And what I did, this is a fantastic map, as I mentioned. She did all of the work here, but I went a little bit more. I added just my little touch, and here it is. I want to stress here that Wan Mei did all of the work, but what I did is I put in the black dots with the names of the cities. That's it. And the reason I did that is because essentially all the places on top I gave them a name, and you can see that's in black, and we're going to go over that in just a little bit. Then there are also 3 places that are in this turquoise blue color, and I'm going to explain what those are. So the first area that I really want to look at is Niagara Falls, if we go from that is right to left or from east to west on the trip. According to what Lucy said, Fred wanted to go to Niagara Falls. Now, if you look, that's approximately the location of Niagara Falls, and you see that the map, the area that Lucy made actually falls very short of Niagara Falls. Now, they could have extended that line just a little bit, but you see Niagara Falls isn't essentially in the middle, which is as far as they go. They don't go that far west, which is really interesting to me why that mistake. Now, again, this map that Juan May made is very accurate as I compared to what is on the show. It's the show, I would say, the map maker of the show that made that mistake. Now we continue on going zigzaggy all the way through Maryland, as you see Virginia, and then we see the first episode called First Stop, where it's the first time we see him on the road, and they get into that little shack that shakes whenever the train goes by. Well, that is, of course, in Cincinnati. Well, not in Cincinnati, but it's just close by to Cincinnati, and you see that there. And of course, Cincinnati is another place that Fred wanted to go. So apparently, according to this, they didn't get to Niagara Falls, but they did go to Cincinnati because, well, it was on the road. And then the episode after that, they go to Tennessee. They drive right through Bent Fork, Tennessee, and they're caught. They actually all go to jail. And you see that Bent Fork isn't exactly there. It's actually, in my opinion, farther east. It's really, 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 really small. And this is just my best estimation. You can even stretch it and say that point right there is roughly in the area of that downward trend, that red line that they said they're going to go to. Now, if we continue on, we see New Orleans. Now, New Orleans is not on the red line at all. It is so far, they don't even travel through Louisiana. So my question is, during this road trip, did they actually stray from Lucy's crazy map? Did they actually go to New Orleans? Because we actually didn't see it throughout the course of the series. Or did they stick to Lucy's crazy map while going? In my opinion, they probably didn't use Lucy's crazy map. But it's really funny to see how, Lucy made all these arrangements, and she didn't even make it going through New Orleans. So that's actually really comical. She even has herself in the car going right through Lake Michigan, which is really interesting. Now, they do, for the most part, go through the Ozarks. That's a large area, and it does fall in between the area of Missouri going into Arkansas and so forth. The next area is Salt Lake City, which, of course, Fred wanted to go to as well. Now, you see they pretty much do stop there in Utah. The Rockies, all throughout that area, so they would have seen the Rockies. Now, they do actually stop in another episode where they go and see Ethel's father, Mr. Potter, in Albuquerque, New Mexico. They pretty much spend that entire episode there. But if we look at the Carlsbad Caverns, which Ethel says that she wanted to visit, that is nowhere near where Lucy marked for them to go, which is a crazy blooper. We have 2 areas that there's no red line going through: New Orleans and the Carlsbad Caverns. I wonder how Lucy completely missed that. However, the Grand Canyon is on there, and what's really crazy is that all of them wanted to see it, and apparently it is on the map. It is, according to Lucy's itinerary, it goes there. But look at the craziness from Arizona going to Hollywood. You can pretty much go straight shot where the Grand Canyon is and snake down south toward the west side and go straight to Hollywood. I don't know why they did all this zigzaggy. I guess it just looks funny, but it's really interesting to note. But according to this map, they do get to the final location, which was Hollywood. I had a really interesting time looking at this map. If you guys and gals see anything really interesting, let me know, because they do go through some states. For example, look how they just quickly go to Texas and then dart right out. They're not going through every state because there are many states that they didn't travel to, but it just seems like they made specific turns to specific areas. I wonder Lucy's logic through all of this, because I don't know, it's a little bit off. It's very Lucy-esque, if you ask me. Thank you so much for your thoughts. I'm really happy and really excited to see your thoughts and comments down below. Thanks again to Juan May for this wonderful map and her dedication to the show and to the channel, as I mentioned. We'll see you next time, guys and gals. Thank you so much for joining me, and most importantly, be hopeful. Thank you so much to all the supporters I have on Patreon, especially my diamond tier patrons: Vito L, Tommy G, Ricky, David D, Citizen Kane, Sally N, and Grace U. If you want to find more exclusive content, visit my Patreon page, links in the description.